Hello, and welcome back to My Life is Chaos. Today's story is a oldie but a goodie. It takes place in around 1991, 1992. I can't really say exactly when this story happened because I was like 8 years old. But this is the story of the time a teacher made a first grader cry in front of me, and so I called her a name. Um, I hope you enjoy. So, this one needs a little bit of backstory. First of all, I went to school in a Seventh day Adventist private school. It was very small. We had 40 students from grades kindergarten to 10, which was when you graduated. And this school itself was like three double wide trailers stacked end to end. I think most of the trailers had classes in them, but there was a tiny little portion in the center that had like an office area. Uh, the trailers themselves were not sectioned off into individual grades classes. And what I mean by that is the kindergartners and the daycare kids were on one side of the trailer, and then there were some bathrooms in between their part of the trailer and the first through fifth grade part of the trailer. And then there was another bathrooms area, and then the office, and then more bathrooms, and then sixth to ninth grade, and then the 10th graders on the other end of the complex had like their own classroom. And this was a Seventh day Adventist private school. So they kind of just like taught all of us in the same room together. Like the teacher would start out with the lessons for the first graders, and then she would move on to the lessons for the second graders, and then third and fourth and fifth. And so you kind of got exposed to all of the upper grades lessons if you were like me and had like really unmanaged ADHD and finished all of your work first. You could listen to, and I sometimes participated in, the lessons for the older children. But this isn't about that. This is actually about when I paid attention to what was happening to the younger children in my class. I don't exactly remember the timeline of this story. I know that I got suspended. And I know that it was around Christmas time, but I'm pretty sure that this school also expelled me at one point, like right at the end of the year. They expelled me with like 2 weeks left, I think. Again, I was like 8 when this happened. So my memories are clear for the parts that matter to me that I've retold over and over again, but like the little details, not so clear. So if for some reason it is figured out by me that this story has some inconsistencies or that I've merged two stories together. I'm sorry, I was 8. I got into a lot of trouble in grade school. And so sometimes me getting in trouble kind of seems like the same story. Um, but I do know that the teacher was like talking to the first graders, and it was just before like Christmas break. And she's like, "So, what are your plans for Christmas break?" And again, this is a Christian private school. And so they were very big on the whole God thing. Um, and this first grader, this little girl, she says to the teacher, "I am excited to find out what Santa has brought me for Christmas." And the teacher decides that she's going to tell this little girl in front of not just her class, but like all the other grades in this room that are all being taught by the same professor, that Santa's not real because Christianity doesn't believe in Santa. And so those presents are coming from your parents, and Santa's not real. And I freaked out, you guys. Like, I, oh my God, y'all. When I say that I was seeing red because this little first grader started crying. She was crying, just tears of disappointment and ruined magic and all of that stuff, in front of everybody in a very vulnerable way. This little girl was having a breakdown in the middle of class, and our teacher laughed at her, and I called her the B word. Um, I told her only a heartless B word would think that it was God's plan to make a 6-year-old cry right before Christmas. And I still to this day, I stick by that. And I got in trouble, obviously, because like you can't call your teacher that in a public school. So in a private school, it was all hell broke loose, for lack of a better description. And she kind of grabbed me and like drug me to the office, which wasn't really like an administrative office. It was like there was a secretary, and then behind the secretary and to the right, there was a like nurse's office with like a cot in it that was like built into the wall and a desk, but there was like no like active nurse who was in there. That just, you went there if you were feeling sick, you could go lay down until your parents came and got you. And then uh, like behind the secretary was the principal's office, and the principal was not there at the time. And so I got put in the nurse's office, and they sat me at the little desk in the nurse's office and told me to just wait until the principal got back from lunch or wherever they were to reprimand me for calling this teacher the B word. And one thing you need to know about me is that I am very neurodiverse. I said in a previous episode that I'm autistic, and that was very much true then. But I've also got I've got some picking issues that manifest in like peeling paint off of the wall sometimes a lot when I was a kid, or like ripping stickers off of things, or playing with tape, or just anything that like had like a little corner that I could like dig at and pull, especially when it came to like stationery and paint, was really awesome for me. And that has connections to OCD and, all of that stuff. And also, I have ADHD. And so it's really hard for me to focus. And at this point in my life, I had been diagnosed with ADHD by the time I was 6. And by the time I was in second grade, I was taking medication for my ADHD. And so there are a lot of like memory issues around all of this, which is why I say it's possible these two stories have melded together. But I remember when they put me in the office and told me to wait for the nurse, or not the nurse, for the principal to be available, that I saw on the wall this hole in the drywall. And it wasn't like a hole that was a hole. It was a hole that had been painted over. And so I'm looking at this hole, and I'm like, that has a little give to it if I push on it. And so like I push on the paint, and then I'm pushing on it harder cuz I don't have anything to do in this office. I'm totally bored. They didn't give me any schoolwork. They didn't give me any paper. I had no pencils. I couldn't even like doodle because there was nothing in there. It was just a room with a cot and a desk and a nice little hole in the wall. So I start pushing at this hole with my finger, and I can feel the paint kind of like doing that thing where it wraps around your skin when you push on it. And that is like, ooh, it's a super satisfying sensory experience. So I push and I push, and finally the paint gives way. And then I just kind of stuck my finger in the hole and started pulling at it. And by the time the principal got to me, there was a fist size hole in this wall because I started peeling at the paint, and then I started peeling at the drywall underneath, and I just made a big hole. And y'all, when I tell you that the principal freaked out, like this is the biggest thing that I can remember about this situation. Like, there was a little girl being traumatized in front of me and crying. And I stood up to a grown up who was way bigger than me and got aggressively thrown in the office. But the thing that I remember the clearest in all of this is that the principal thought I was punching holes in the wall. And nobody would listen to me when I was like, no, I didn't punch a hole. I picked at it. I was pulling at the paint, and you guys didn't do a great job of repairing the hole. And so it was just, there was nothing in here for me to do. And the change in texture in the wall caught my eye, and I had to pick at it. But nobody wanted to listen to me because I was like 7, 8 years old. And who listens to a 7 or 8 year old? Not adults, obviously. And so I got suspended, like, not for calling the teacher a name. Like, that after the whole incident, it became like an afterthought to what had happened. I got suspended in second grade for, quote, punching holes in the wall in the nurse's office, when that's not what I did. Like, the receptionist was right there. The secretary was right on the other side of the door. She would have heard me if I was like hitting a hole in the wall, even at like 7, 8 years old. And she didn't say that she ever heard anything, but nobody wanted to listen to her either because they just wanted to be mad at the little Mexican kid who had put a hole in the wall. And so not only did they like suspend me, but they wouldn't let me come back to school until I repaired the hole in the wall. And I ended up doing a better job. Me and my dad ended up doing a better job of patching this hole up than whoever painted over it. So I guess problem solved. like yeah. So I got a 2-week vacation from school, and I also got to learn how to patch a hole. And I was able to defend a little girl from a really mean adult, ruining her dreams, crushing her soul, making her cry, and deciding for her what she needs to believe, despite her parents clearly having involvement in her believing in Santa. And that's kind of one of the stories that I tell people when they want to know what kind of a person I am, because, like, it's got all the elements. It tells you how incredibly impulsive and low impulse control I am. It tells you that I am the type of person to stand up for weaker people, and it lets you know that I've been doing that since I was in single digits age. And so I feel like this is one of the defining stories in my life, where it's like, if I meet somebody new and they want to know who I am, this is the story I tell them. That said, this is the end of the story. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that gave you some insight into me, and I hope it was entertaining. Like, I know this one isn't like the other ones. It's not really like drama or whatever, but I like this story, and I tell this story to my friends. So there you go. Thank you for listening to the latest installment of My Ridiculous Life. I'll see you at the next one.